when I make these trips, it's not cheap for me to come down. I've got 6 weeks of vacation where I work, so she understands that any chance that I get coming down here, it's not cheap for gas and hotel. So I really appreciate John's help and letting me stay there. I do want to thank the Striker Club for allowing me to be a part of it. On the first slide, it's taken me a while to join. I've been researching it for several years. But we have 2 children that are almost out of the house.
Can you come a little closer? Like right about here. A little closer.
A little closer.
Yeah, this is also the microphone, so speak to that. Okay.
And so we're this close to being empty nesters. I'm kind of excited. I've done my job. My wife, I'm not sure how I'm going to handle that. Yeah, no, I love the kids dearly. My first priority is my family, so I wanted to wait until a time where I can devote effort into this club and volunteer and help out as much as I can. I love getting involved with projects. Kevin was nice enough to let me become part of the Real Connections this year, and he actually made me a chaperone, which is too nice of him. I've only taken one striper trip in my life. I'm not a live bait fisherman, but I got a chance to see with Josh Root last year just what he does, and I was thoroughly impressed. The water was 86 degrees July 4th, and I said, "Hey Josh, we're going down Lake Oracle." He said, "You're crazy." He turned that boat out of State Park to the right. I was like, "Okay, we're going to." Well, then he turns into Becky's Creek, which is my favorite creek for all species. And so I figured we stopped at Gangplank Point, drove there, maybe some stuff. Well, he goes all the way to the back. And so all the research that I had done over the years is that, okay, early in the year, fish go back, shad go back. June, July, the fish come out, they get the main channel, they're dropping on them. So we go almost all the way to the back. And I look at him and gotta show me something. I said, "This is one of me." So I had some friends with us that never caught a striper, and I had my wife. And he dropped, I call it Carolina blue, it was just an egg single with leader and a big shad. I'm not real good with shad types yet, so I don't know what kind of shad we were using. And he started making a circle with his Tarova, and we made one pass right there where it kind of splits. And we made one pass, nothing. I'm watching the 2D, and there's a few blips, nothing big. Yes, these fish are out here. It's 86 degrees. They're out there. Well, we made a second pass, and all heck broke loose. I mean, it was 6 rods at a time. My wife was screaming at me. I was screaming at her. I was screaming at my friends because they never caught one. And I think we started at 5:30, and by 7:30, he couldn't even close the seat because the quarter was stuffed with fish. And he did the right thing after we caught our limit. He said, "I'm done." Of course, the wife looked at me and said, "Wait a minute, it's 7 o'clock. We just drove. We're done." He said, "We don't want to kill these fish." So I asked Josh to take us down to the Estuary so they could see the big part of the lake, and he said he was going to get breakfast feed over there at that little store. But those kinds of things, being with that charter and learning about the stripers and being in this club is sharing my passion. It is the reason I joined and help out with everybody here. I'm excited about it. I do live 2.5 hours away, so I can't be here every weekend. I try to get down as much as I can, and Mr. Patter here has already invited me for a little lesson, and I'll get with him because
he's going to be giving me the lesson.
I don't know, but that's another reason to get down here as much as I can. I love the lake, I love the people. I've been coming down here for 20 years. When we moved here in '86, it wasn't long after my father bought a Bryant inboard, and we'd come down to Smooth Mountain Lake. My dad was a Marine, so we'd get in the boat, and he let us water ski a little bit, but when it came time to fishing, all he wanted to do was just drive around the boat, listen to Willie Nelson, and drink beer. He would never stop long enough for us to throw a line. God bless him, he taught me how to...
Marine, right? A true Marine.
True Marine, yeah.
What?
Well, we had a good time at the lake. I fished tournaments for probably 10 to 15 years. It seems like the older I get, I just like to go out with people, my partners, friends, go out and have a good time. And I still have that competitive advantage, especially when I'm in the boat with John, because I know John's got the same advantage. And see us trying to hit that first light, it's kind of who's going to get there.
But he keeps me in the back of the boat, so he gets the best first cast.
Absolutely. So there was a theory behind me taking my boat every night as compared to his boat. Number one, we could get there quicker, so we could hit more spots. And number two, I was in the front. So last night, my partner brought his son, and we let him cast at the lights and cast at the riprap walls. And he had a great time last night. He didn't get to fish much. We were being young and working, so we had a good time. But anyway, if you want to flip to the next screen. Again, I want to thank the SMSC for the opportunity to join the club. I also want to thank each of you. As I said, I wanted to be here a lot sooner, but it's taken a little bit of time to have the right moment to help out. I'm also on the back end of graduate school. I don't know what possessed me to wait till I'm almost 50 to go back for my MBA. There's some opportunities within my field as a logistics supervisor that may hold true in the future. And also, if I ever decide that I want to move to Rome to be closer, having that MBA in my discipline, I think will help. The MBA's in data analytics. What's that your first name?
Tim.
Tim.
Yeah.
Tim working.
I love graduate degree in data analytics. That's awesome.
So Tim being in the field, that's where everything's going. Everything's digital. It's just an incredible journey that I've been in with my job and seeing how everything is evolving and changing. So instead of going like the business manager route, I went in data analytics because with logistics, we're all the time looking at data, how to become more efficient, and I thought it would be a good field. I mentioned the empty nesters. Bradford University was the undergrad. I'm doing the MBA at Longwood University, which is a great little school. Luckily, I don't have to be there. I can do it online. I'll graduate, I think it's around August 12th, so I'm almost there. A little about me. I was born in Pensacola, Florida, on the Naval Air Base. My father was an F-4 fighter pilot with the BT-2 group. My mother was a med tech. Just a little tidbit about my dad. 1986, Top Gun came out. That was when we moved to West Virginia, and he entered medical school to become a DO. He now does ER medicine. But I can remember in '86, he was all gung-ho about Top Gun coming out. It was the aviation movie. And if you know anything about these doctors, when they go into medical school, the bank pretty much writes them a blank check. Oh, you're going to be a doctor. What would you be, 300, 400? My dad likes to spend money, so and so when the bank, gave him the loan for medical school, maybe I should buy a Corvette. So he bought a Corvette with some of the loaner money, being a pilot. And so he took us to go see Top Gun in this Corvette. And I can remember coming out, and we got in the Corvette, and right away, I told him, I said, Dad, this is not an F4. We're in the car. Be quiet. He already had the Kenny Loggins soundtrack, Danger Zone and all, and he just went there. He's a great guy. He's been through a lot in his life. We moved around a bit. We lived in Quantico. I was there when the tornado hit. I don't know how many years ago, but I was there. San Diego, I think it was Cherry Point, I don't know, somewhere in North Carolina, Cherry Point. Yeah, and then of course Pensacola. We try to go back to Pensacola when we can. I love taking charters out of Destin. I love catching the big grouper, the red grouper, and the gag grouper. Again, he's in ER medicine after he retired. I graduated in 1991. I'm going to turn 50 years old this next month. I'm scared to death. Maybe y'all can give me some tips. I can't believe how quick life has went by. I'm currently a 20-year tenured materials and logistics supervisor with Raytheon Technologies. Now, I started out with Goodrich, which was a little aviation company. 2011, United Technologies bought Goodrich, and then United Technologies at some point several years ago bought Rockwell Collins. Then UTC acquired or merged, I don't know what happened, but we merged with or bought Raytheon Technologies. So we're one of the largest aerospace companies in the world. We own Pratt & Whitney, BE Aerospace, BAE, Collins, Rockwell, Goodrich. It's an incredible place to work. We do some government contracts where I work, but it's mostly regional and private jets as far as all the de-icing systems, all the heated specialty products. You know, when they release water from 30,000 feet, they got to keep it warm until the exit's clean. So we have to build all the heated systems for that. We also build heated floor panels, so when you walk in there, it's not a necessity in the plane, it's kind of an option. Some people, you know, you get kind of chilled in there, so we build heated floor panels, which may or may not be covered by carpet, I can't remember. But they add a little bit of heat to the cabin and make things more comfortable. It's a good place to work. I'm hoping that my career will end there, maybe not. It all started with this. This was back when we first moved here in '86 and '80, a place called Smoke Hole. My dad loved to trout fish when he wasn't listening to William and drink alcohol. So we used to go camp, and this is where it all started, on the trout stream. After graduation, I saved a little bit of money, and I met a few friends that introduced me to lake fishing, which was completely new. You know, just like that, I jumped in with other people. I mean, this is great. So instead of waiting and bothering other people, I said, I'm going to go buy a boat. So I went and bought a 18.5-foot Stratus with a 150 Johnson. Several years later, after things got a little better, and the kids kind of came up and they got jobs, and I went and added inevitably, I call it my third choice, she calls it third child. Actually, surprisingly, it doesn't cost a lot of money now that I've got it, but the initial investment, you know, when I called the bank to get the money for it, they said, oh, you know, we can give you a signature loan for it. And I said, look, you realize that a signature loan is up to like $5,000, so this engine is $19,000. What? So I ended up having to refinance the boat and in order to put the boat on. But that thing is a beast. John, I've had it in there.
Quiet as ever for a two-stroke.
Yeah, it's quiet. It almost sounds like a diesel. The engineers at BRP are some amazing people. How they got this thing to use less oil and less fuel. With my Jack Johnson, it was, I think, 1 or 2 miles to the gallon. My Edenry, I can go 10 miles to the gallon. Excuse me. It's been a great time. So after I got the boat, my partner and I, my wife, we just went all around catching all kinds of stuff, and I live to be on the water. Next slide, just more pictures. Again, my forte was bass fishing. Then in 2000, I'm thinking this is 2005 maybe. This first fish on Glader Lake, it changed my life. It was in October, and my partner took us in his little javelin there. And we went busting around, and if you ever seen striper bust, I'm sure everybody has. It just looks like popcorn. Well, we chased him around, and we'd roll up, we'd catch one, and we'd put the pole between our legs and go out. I was having to do it. This is incredible. This fish is just incredible. That day really changed my life, so that's when I started researching, and I really got involved in it. Didn't know much about Smith Mountain Lake and these stripers. I heard about the fish kill. But back then, Glader Lake was still pretty hot. You go over there at night, they would bust the surface and also bust the bank. So we had a good time over there. So, a little refresher first. I have to apologize to John. When I watched his video on 2D, I was about 4 margaritas in, and I was in the Mexican restaurant, so I didn't hear what I thought I heard. When I went back and watched it again, I said, oh, this is not the way to start off and start with that. But I made a few comments on there about some inconsistencies that I heard. I went back and looked, and he was talking about A-scope with 2D, not the downside. So, John, I apologize for that. But it's important to understand the 2D split screen with the A-scope, which is the flasher. So I know probably everybody in here that has a striper boat uses 2D. It's probably your preferred method of finding fish and finding structure. The thing with the split screen is I know that John and also I think Mr. Hartman talked about the different frequencies. So the lower the frequency, the wider the coverage. The higher the frequency, the narrower the coverage. So if you look over here, let me get my pointer that won't, I don't need batteries for this one. 77, so if we do a split screen, which probably all your units have, you can do something like a 77 on the left and a 200 on the right. So what that's going to show you is that's going to give you the most coverage around your boat. Most people just put one 2D on there, and depending on what degree cone you put on there, you're not really seeing everything you could. So I took this picture. You can see on Garmin units, unfortunately, they don't offer, at least this one doesn't offer as far down as 77 kilohertz. It actually starts at 200, or I'm sorry, starts at 140 and goes up to 200. So what I have here is I have the narrow cone on the left, and I have the wider cone on the right. So not only am I looking straight down, I'm also looking a little bit, maybe 6-7 feet to my left, 6-7 feet to my right, 6-7 feet in front of me. So depending on the depth of the water, that cone kind of gets bigger as you get deeper. But I want to see everything that I can see, so I dropped the jig down here, and you can see I can see it on both sides. I dropped it right at the transducer, so it picked it up in the narrow cone, and it also picked it up on the wide cone.
Yeah. Sean, excuse me for interrupting. On the bottom of the A scope on both sides, where it says 15 and 21, that's the size of the cone on the bottom
Yes.
that it's showing.
Exactly. I forgot to mention that. Yeah. That I saw that little number a few years ago when I had the striker units.
Yep.
And thank you for observing that. But the A scope to me is very important. So everything to the left of this box is history, right? It's what happened. It's not what's happening. So it's nice to have the A scope because when you drop it down there, you'll see your bait, and then all of a sudden you'll see a line underneath of it, and that's a fish. If you want to watch your fish eat your bait in real time, you'll watch this dot kind of move up there and get parallel with your bait, and then that history will show that fish, that line moving up and moving down. So it's really neat to sit over some fish like when you're jigging in July, and you identify one, you drop the jig down there, and you can watch them eat. It's almost like a kid at Christmas. Oh my God. A lot of people will jerk too early because as soon as they feel that nip, they're already eating. So the A scope is a nice feature when you're using 2D, and as well as a split screen. Because like I said, you can cover more around your boat. This second picture is what I wanted to show you all was the difference in the coverage. So if you look over here, this is the narrow beam. You look over here, this is the wide beam. If you look at that yellow arrow, which is a crazy job, you can see this line, and then you can see this dot. Of course, this is the history of the jig dropping down, and then that is the actual jig. But what you don't see is you don't see the line over here. So what I did was I pitched that jig out beside the boat. So when you have a split screen, again, you may be seeing a fish out, but you're not seeing a fish in. So the age-old question is, well, if I put it on wide, I can see everywhere. And that's right. If I put it on 77 kilohertz, if I put it on 140 kilohertz, I don't need the narrow beam because the wide takes care of everything. You're not wrong in your thought. But what happens is the 200 is a very precise, very narrow beam and offers a lot more detail. So as far as fish size, as far as structure on the bottom, it's nice to have the narrow beam just because it offers more detail. So forward-facing sonar, that's just like every other acronym in this world. If you work in business, I can't keep up with all the terminology now. There's acronyms for everything. The forward-facing sonar is simply live, real-time sonar. It's facing forward, or you can face it down. It's been out maybe 4 years, I'm thinking, maybe 4 or 5. It was first developed. All this technology wasn't invented by Garmin. Garmin invented a little bit. Most of this technology was actually developed in the military, and then it progressed back in the 50s and 60s, and then these engineers found a way to make it affordable for people like us. The forward-facing sonar is sent an array of crystals that fire rapidly at different frequencies and different angles. So what's in this transducer is a bunch of different crystals, what they call an array, and those things are just firing in certain sequence really quick. After that transducer fires that sequence of frequencies, the transducer sends it to a black box. That black box is kind of the brains of the computer. It stitches everything together and then sends it to the screen, which gives you a nice picture. If you look real close, this line right here is a little bit of stitching that came from the box. Once you get your adjustments set, with the newer transducers, you can pretty much eliminate the seams like this. With the older transducer, the LD32, it's not quite as crisp. There's this thing called focus, which is what I'll get to in a little bit. It helps kind of align those crystals so it gives you a good picture. But that's basically all it is. It's a transducer, it's a black box, and it's a screen. You have to have all three. kind of the downside, you know, right now I think the new Livescope transducer, the black box is selling for $16.99. I mean, you can get a 9-inch screen. I see them on sale all the time. I will tell you, however, to get the biggest screen you can afford, the reason for that is when you're looking at further distance, which I believe the striker folks are going to do, a bigger screen is going to help see those targets at further distances over a 9-inch screen. So the 9, 10, and 12, I haven't really worked with the 15-inch screen yet. I can't even imagine having one. The one I have on my boat is a 12-inch. I've also got a 10-inch. I will tell you again that if you're money tight, the 9-inch will work fine. But for a striker fisherman looking to see longer distances, I really recommend going with the 10 or the 12-inch. But you have to have all three to make this thing work. There's 3 different selections you can use. This is the forward view. This is what, I don't think Mr. Hartman touched on that too much. He was more looking at the down view. So you have the forward view, you have the down view, and you have what this is called perspective. I'm not going to go over perspective much because it's more of a shallow water technique, 10 foot or less. It's really good for the bass fishermen when they're looking for beds, largemouth, smallmouth beds. The down view, I'm not going to get into that much because Mr. Hartman gave a great presentation on some live feeding on his down view or down selection. What I'm going to go through most is the forward view. To me, that's the most important because it's going to give me the most visibility all around my boat. And I can set it on, like you saw in the video, for 10 feet, 1 foot, or I can set it to 200 feet. I can scan up to 70 yards in any direction at any time. So those are the 3 selections. You do have to rotate the transducer. The computer does have a memory that when you rotate the transducer, it will automatically switch. But you do have to rotate the transducer in order to see each of those views.
Sean, which view do you use most?
Which view do I use the most? Absolutely forward.
Okay.
The down, it would be great if you're stationary and you're not moving, and you're dropping that jig down there and you can stay on it pretty good. Down is nice. But Mr. Hartman, when he gave his presentation, for whatever reason, he said that when you had him forward mode, you couldn't see behind the boat. And I kind of had to question that because in the next few slides, I'm going to show you that you can actually see 25 to 50 feet behind your boat, depending on the depth of the water. So with forward view, you can actually see behind you and all around you. So you have the technology, the black box, you have the transducer and whatnot. Now it's time to find how you're going to mount it. And I've talked to John, and I was talking to Pat. I don't know what kind of boats you have, or if you even have Livescope, but a lot of striker people that I see have Tarova, which is a moving shaft. You just hit the button, that thing comes up, and really nice, right? Except for the wintertime. Fish wintertime, those nuts and bolts I've seen freeze up and they break. But other than that, it's really cool. The problem is you can't mount the Livescope transducer on that shaft because that thing slides up, it'll hit the bracket. So there's a few companies out there that actually make a bracket if you want to put it on your shaft. That's the first way. I don't recommend putting the transducer on the barrel of the trolling motor because of the interference. That's a magnetic, well, some of them are, most of them are magnetic trolling motor engines in there, and they will cause interference with your transducer. So the recommended for me is a shaft mount because with that shaft you can turn almost all the way around. You can get the most coverage. The individual pole mount. So these are pretty cool. You can buy a separate pole that you can mount the transducer on. Those are nice, except that I'm Mr. Efficiency. I've got to be going like this with my trolling motor, and then I've also got to be over here doing this. And to me, that's too much work. So one of the main reasons I put mine on the shaft is because everything's right here. I don't have to touch anything. Now they do make stomp pads, so you can hit a button over here, hit a button over here. It's a motorized unit that will turn that transducer pole for you. That's an option to go. What I found last year, looking at iCast, was a company called Sniper, and they came out with this pole, and you can put it on the front. But what I really like is they put it right here at the console, and they have this handle up here, and that handle you simply turn and it will rotate the transducer. This is actually a great idea because unless you have your trolling motor down, you can't look at Livescope. So we see a lot of people with the trolling motor down, and then they'll start idling around looking for different structure or fish. This is really cool because this pole allows you just to drop it down beside the console while you're moving. You can rotate that thing all around, and you can kind of look for fish while you're moving that way instead of having one on the shaft of the trolling motor. If you want to speak to me at some point, and I can give you more suggestions, but there's really no right or wrong way to do it. Again, if you have a Toroga, you have to buy about a $400 bracket. Mr. Pat over here actually bought the ice bomb wheel. He just drops it beside the boat and starts spinning with his feet. I mean, that's pretty cool. There's a few different ways to mount it. So let's get to the meat and potatoes. I'm going to try as efficiently, as quickly as possible to get through showing you what these swings look like. We're mostly fishing the water column. That's why I don't want to go in perspective. You want to see what's in the water column. The perspective mount turns the transducer sideways, which allows you to see structure and you can see fish moving, but you can't tell how deep they are, right? It's only one dimension. So by using forward view, you can look and see what depth those fish are in. So that's why I'm not going to go into perspective. Let's see, he showed the down view, so I just touched on that a little bit. So this is going to focus on the forward view. All my literature, my little explain is just showing you the forward view. This is a really great shot that I got with John. I'm colorblind, so I'm all the time playing with colors to try to differentiate some of the images. So why is Livescope important to fishermen and fishermen? So, the most obvious right here is your stripers. There's not a striper in that picture. Okay, these little black dots, these little dots down here, could be crappie, could be huge fish or shad, but there's no stripers on that dot. Therefore, if you're a fishing type person, scan the dock and move on. Scan the dock and move on. Fork in or there, drink a cup of coffee, let's see what happens. Either way, there's no right or wrong way to do it. This just makes it a little more efficient when you want to find the fish. We can study fish's behavior. You wouldn't believe the difference in a small mouth and large mouth and how a striper reacts. I was telling the young lady here that we threw out a couple nights ago, and the striper came up, and he acted interested in the one behind him. But just by that first fish showing interest, the second fish said, heck no, I'm taking it. And he came up and got it. It's really crazy to watch how these fish behave with each other and with your bait. Not having this technology and you're throwing a swamp monkey out there, you're just kind of doing this, you're hoping and praying. If you throw a Livescope on it, you can do the same thing, then you might see a fish on it. That fish is kind of like, I don't know. But if you pop it real quick, you wouldn't believe how those fish will react. Or if you slow it down a little bit, that may be all you want. But without this technology, you're just kind of hoping and praying that I get a bite. But with the Livescope, you know if he's there, and if he is there, you know how he's acting, so you know how to present the bait. Really, really incredible how they study fishing behavior. I wish I could talk to more biologists and see how they're using it to study the fishing behavior. Also, one more time.
Oh, sorry.
We can also look 200 feet in any direction. Again, I told Pat, you guys are looking down with a 19-degree cone or 13-degree cone, and you can see a little bit. I can look 200 feet in any direction. I can scan this whole room in instant. I can tell you within 30 seconds, hey, they're here or they're not. To me, that's huge. Any striper fisherman, whatever, that's huge to cover that much area to see where you're fishing. Pulling boards, you can turn that thing around here. There's one on this one. It gives you a little bit of a jump start or ahead of time. All right. So the cone, this is a little misleading. I really researched this. Again, we work in the avionics industry, and so does Garmin, so we have contacts with Garmin engineers. I've spoken to them several times about the cone. So what you're looking at here, this is the forward range. The cone starts at 0 and throws out. So it's a 20-degree cone, right? It's 20 degrees. Theory would suggest that it will get wider as it goes out. And then you're looking at a 135-degree angle. So as I was mentioning before, you can actually look behind the boat. Now keep in mind, when you turn the transducer, so if the transducer is pointed here, you're looking behind your boat. But when you turn the transducer like this, and you're looking that way, well now you're not looking under the boat, you're actually looking 30, 50 feet that way. It took me a few minutes to wrap that around my head. It's like, I was thinking it was behind the boat, but it's actually whatever way that transducer goes, that's the area that you're looking at. So it's an incredibly huge area that you can cover, and by having that transducer, the pole mount or the shaft mount, you can just simply go back and forth as quick or as slow as you want and just scan your area. It's going to give you this coverage each step of the way. And that was John found that. I appreciate John bringing that up. I was trying to draw it out and it was something off. And I said, man, I'm in trouble here. But then he showed me this and I thought that was a good representation.
You know what I think was cool too? Being in the back of the boat, I'd have to look up and see which way his trolling motor was pointing, because he had a second screen at the console, so I could see what he saw, but then you knew which way to cast, so it was pretty cool if it's pointing off on the starboard side, you know which way, I'd say, and you know exactly how far to throw, 30 feet, 40 feet. It's really kind of life-changing to be in a boat and see it.
It is. I don't know if my partner's watching or not, but you get a chuckle out of this. When we're going down and we like the lights, we're fishing lights, and as we get closer to those lights, he's learned to look at my head unit, because you can't really trust the heading sensor. He's learned to look at my head unit, so when I creep up to those things, I'm scanning. Well, what he's gotten good at is he watches that head, and next thing you know,
Quick draw.
Yeah, it could do, and I'm telling you what, you know the first cast usually is a good one. Next slide, please. A little more about cones. I'm not going to blow your mind because Damon, I can't blow your mind. I mean, I know a little bit about the technology, but I'm not going to go into great depth. Other to say than a lot of people think it's a 20-degree cone, right? So you throw it out there, and you're within that cone window, you're going to see your bait. What actually happens is, and you can test it when you go out to further ranges, instead of being a 20-degree cone that just keeps going on to infinity, the way the beam works is the beam actually goes out, and then there's a halfway point. So say this is 50 feet right here. So it's 50 feet across right here, and on the edges of that beam, of course, just like 2D, the picture is going to go a little faded out because it's a little weaker signal. But at some point, past that mid-range, the beam actually starts to come back. And you can see that when you set your Livescope to say 100 feet, you've got to be really pinpoint. At 100 feet, I think it was something like the traditional 2D cone was 36 feet across. I don't see that in my studies. What I see is as you go further out, the beam starts to narrow. So there's been a lot of arguments about how this beam is actually working. If you get on YouTube, the guy did a really good ice study in which he drilled holes at 50 and 100 feet. He had the ice mount and he dropped the transducer down, and then he went and he dropped the jig. And what was really cool was at the 50-foot mark, you could see it on the outer edges of the cone. But then he drilled another mark, looked like 5 feet over this way, and when he dropped it over there, you could still see his jig. So what that tells me is, right here, it's actually going a little bit wider than that 20-degree cone, which means it's cone wide, but then it's got to go back. Don't ask me at what point this all comes together, because I don't know and I can't get answers. And they're kind of, Garmin's really good about sharing information, but they're not going to release a bunch of technical stuff, at least not to me. So it's a 20-degree cone as claimed, but again, try to keep in mind that it's an area that I think is more egg-shaped more than just goes out to the film. You can see that when you throw it. So what are we looking at here? This is a really cool picture up at Indian Point. I wish I could say these were strikers, but we found, well, you saw the pictures, we found some around the point from Indian Creek. But these were actually bass. I never knew this little rock pile ledge existed, but we rolled up on this and there were a lot more fish. We probably caught 6 or 7 bass. But these are bass marked out here. But what you're looking at on this screen is important is right here the 0. That's my transducer. That's my boat. These numbers out here represent the forward range. So I've got mine set on 80 feet. This line right here, you can see that 135-degree angle. This line right here represents what I'm seeing behind the boat. So I'm sitting in 37 feet. I can actually see almost 30 feet behind me. And then, of course, this is the whole picture. I've got the hot buttons here. Livescope is not a plug and play. Don't expect to just turn it on and go, got it. Marantz is a little easier to adjust and a temperatures, the water conditions, clarity, how far you want to look. Everything changes constantly. So I have these hot buttons here. So down here, let's see, this is the forward. So I'm looking 80 feet forward. I've got my gain set on 64. If you don't remember anything else, if you do get a Livescope, start with your gain at 60, and then work it up or work it down. And then I've got over here the depth. The depth is really important. And I noticed on Hartman's video, he was showing you some down imaging, and you saw a whole bunch of nothing under here, and you saw this little tiny screen where you can see him jigging those fish and all that. If you leave this in auto, you're going to lose screen coverage, right? So if you leave it in the auto, the Garmin will automatically change the screen contours. I don't know what the right word is, but it'll go up and down, and it takes your screen away. So it's really important to use the manual setting for your depth. So like the video some of you all saw last night, we were looking at 16 feet of water. If I left it on auto and had the boat turned from deep to front, the auto setting is still stuck at like 80 because it's 80 out there. So I'm trying to look at these fish that are in 16 foot of water with the setting, and I don't get a very good picture. It's a small picture. So what I did was I jacked it down to 20 feet, and what happens, it just blows that picture up, right? So it's very important when you get a Livescope to have this set on manual. And again, so for striper fishermen, if you see the suspended fish at 20 feet, and you're fishing like over on B2, it's like 140 feet out there. If you have it on auto, you know, 2/3 of your screen is looking at nothing because the fish are way up here and kind of tiny at 20 feet, and the rest is just nothing. So if they're suspended 20 feet, set it for 30, and all of a sudden you'll see everything blossom, everything will blow up. It's really important function. A lot of people just, again, using plug and play, they leave everything on auto and just go looking. But you can enhance that picture so much by messing with the depth. As far as the settings, I can go on and on for hours, but I wanted to hit the highlights. When I made the presentation, John kind of gave me time. I started talking days and days, so I don't really get all this in. But the most important part of setting your system up is going to the sonar setup, is going to the installation, and then you're looking at this screen. And this screen is really easy to navigate. The installation depth, that's basically from the surface of the water down to your transducer. Mine's a foot below my surface of the water. Yours might be 2, might be 3. But if you want to get an accurate depth reading, you need to adjust that. The AHRS is basically a stabilization thing in the transducer. So when those big cigar boats go by and your boat, my boat, going up and down, I think we're going to drown, I'm looking at my picture and it's just nice and steady. So Garmin uses this kind of a steady sensor to make everything nice and crisp. I recommend having that on. If you turn it off, you'll have to manually adjust some settings. This sensor is very important. It also uses, but it's very important to have this on. Also, calibrating your compass. You don't have to, because like I said, can you flip back a couple screens? Right here. So this is the compass. So I've got mine set. So this little yellow or green, whatever it is, line, this is showing me which way my transducer is pointing, but it lies. That's my partner. That's John. Because, you know, he'll be facing this way. This thing's kind of going crazy.
One thing I noticed though, Sean, it has north. So is that set to the relative heading of your boat, or is it set to magnetic north?
That's set to magnetic north.
Okay.
So the reason this is not as accurate is, I don't know if it's a money rack or somebody before.
Can you set it to the direction of your boat instead of
Yeah, heading
you
up.
set it to the direction of the boat, but that's not going to change. When you calibrate this thing, it uses the magnetic environment and the spin quality. So you have to spin your boat 1.5 times, so it gets the point in it, and then it gives you a picture. But because the GPS signal is not as accurate as it could be with the temp sensor, or not temp sensor, a digital sensor that Garmin sells for like $149. If you get that sensor, this thing, from what I've heard, is spot on. It will tell you which way your transducer is. But I've never seen this thing 100% accurate. When you calibrate your compass, it starts out real nice. Everybody's happy in the back of the boat because they can't see the motor. They can look at this and go, oh, yeah. But as you go throughout the day, it becomes less and less specific. that, when you calibrate your compass, it's important to at least try it and get it in. If you change from forward view to perspective, all this goes away and you have to recalibrate your compass. That's another reason why I switched to perspective much, because then you have to go calibrate it. But that's calibrating the compass, and that's the little window right there. And one more feature that's really cool, if you have two units, if you have the second unit in maps, this cone is going to not only show you which way the transducer is facing, it's also set up to show you how many feet you're looking at. So if I'm fishing a ledge, I'm not in this picture, if I'm fishing a ledge, it's going to show me what coverage area that I'm looking at. So I use that a lot when I'm fishing offshore structure, or channel ledge, swing back, stuff like that. So if you have two units, or if you use a split screen, having this will also display on your maps. The orientation, you just leave this on auto, that way the computer knows which way the transducer is facing, whether it's perspective, down, or forward. The focus, I'll leave it up to John if he wants to watch a couple of short videos and explains this. The focus is not normally what you would think is focus. It has to do with the alignment of the crystals to make the stitching more consistent so you will see it. And then again, if you're just frustrated beyond your belief and you can't figure it out, just hit restore seven all the false and it will go back to a factory setting. But that's basically, as far as getting all this installation, that's all you got to do. It takes no extra. It takes a minute and a half to calibrate your compass.
So you've got how many videos here? 3?
Yeah, there's one that's like 7 minutes, one that's 5, and one that's 7 minutes.
Okay.
There's really no way to explain this without video.
So what I would say is we're going to send this presentation out through email to all the Striper Club members. And I would say when they get that, then they can click on this and have it play through. I mean, you've got some other slides here still to go.
For time being, leave the focus. If you go back a step, the focus. So what this does is the computer, by putting on auto fresh or auto salt or manual, so if you're in salt water, you want to use auto salt. If you're in freshwater, auto fresh. They use the water temp and the salinity of the water to achieve that focus, the way those beams are oriented and the speed coming back. So for layman's terms, on Smith Mountain Lake, put in auto fresh and forget about it. Until you watch that video, then you can decide if you want to manually do it. These next settings are the most important. Besides the installation, these settings are the most important. Number 1 is your color scheme. Way back in the slide series, that color we were using, John and I, was called floodlight color. It looks crazy to me, it gives some color line. What you all want to remember is in the morning, you want to use something kind of drab like amber or orange crawfish, right? Low glare stuff. When the sun comes out and it gets a little more difficult to see that screen, you want to use colors like black emerald or moss. So that's going to make the screen pop a lot more against that sunlight. So in the morning, it's amber or orange crawfish. When the sun comes out, you want to use black emerald or moss, those nice big colors. The color gain is very important. There's a video, I don't know if it'll show it or not, but the color gain basically allows you to make the targets pop, so to speak. So the lower the color gain, the screen kind of gets darker, and the higher the color gain, everything starts to pop. So if you call them and say, Sean, I can't see my baby. The first question I'm going to ask you is, what's your color gain? There's no right or wrong number. Again, it's kind of like with the palettes. In the morning, you don't want that thing to blind you, so you can bump this down to 60. Then when the sun comes out, by all means, crank it up there so you can see. But it depends on what you want to look at. If you want to look at fish or your bait, jack it up. If you want to see the structure on the bottom, you got to watch, because as that gets brighter, it starts distorting the bottom, so you can't really get a good feel of it. Is that a stone? Bush? What is that? So this color gain is very important. The best I can say is just play with it. But when you get your unit, or if you already have a unit in the morning, you may want to go like 60, and when that sun comes out, don't be afraid to crank it to 100. especially if you can't see your bait or you can't see your fish. This is the number one reason why people buy Livescope and they say, gosh, you can't see them. Well, they've got this jacked all over. I think it's a false 50 inch weight ball. The color limit, I'm going to tell you to leave it alone. That was a new feature. The old transducer had a bug in it, so to speak. The crystals would reflect off the rock and kind of make this ghost tree appear. It was like an apparatus, kind of a shadow. It just started based on the reflection of the hard bottom. So what their fix was, they put this color limit tab on here to help try to take that away. But what I've noticed is that as this goes higher, it kind of takes out your target. So for all practical purposes, just leave that on default. Trails, that's not really anything to worry about. Basically, if you turn it on, when the target moves, you'll kind of see a little cool trail, almost like when you, what you call it, tracer rounds. So you see a tracer round go, you can kind of see that tail. That's all that is. In the bottom field, most of the time we're fishing for suspended fish or stripers. I usually keep mine off. What that'll do is that'll kind of make the bottom a different color so you can actually see what we were talking about earlier, and then it'll kind of change the actual bottom to a different color. I don't really play with that too much, especially when striper fishing, because as you know, they can be 60, 70 feet deep, but they're always suspended. But this screen is very important. This video will just go over what I just said in much more detail. It's going to show you how to get rid of the fuzz. It's going to show you about the gains and focus, the range and stuff. We don't have to watch it tonight. But it's important you all go back and watch this because they explain it a lot better.
I think it'd be great if we could see the one you posted on GroupMe either today or yesterday.
And this one's kind of important. So if you can flip back, we don't have to watch the video, but I'll explain it to you. Keep going, keep going, keep going. Right here. So this 0, all right, there's a tab on there called reverse range, which actually allows you to set the angle a little different. So if I set it on none, this 0 is going to go all the way back to here, and you're not going to be able to see behind your boat. That's cool because for those 9-inch guys or girls, that kind of opens up their screen to allow a little more visibility. So if you hide it, it goes all the way back. You can go, I think it's half and full. I always keep mine on full because I like looking back as much as looking forward. But that reverse range, all it is just changes that 0 to either further back or further forward. Now that we've seen it, I don't even need to see that because I got a much better
Well, let me know when you want to show that.
Yeah. I told you before, use the manual depth. If you're at 100 feet, the fish are suspended in 20, half your screen is going to be dead water. So please put that range on, not the range, but put the depth on manual. You never stop adjusting the game. Right now we got a lot of pollen, we got a lot of trash in the lake. On the blackwater side especially, when I dropped that transducer for the first time, it looks like the smell on TV. And so I got to play with the game to get it to where I want to see. Now, I can kind of look past the fuzz. Of course, having more game, being more sensitive, is going to allow you to see more targets. So I've gotten to where I can kind of look through some of the fuzz. So sometimes I jack it up and you can still see your targets. But never quit playing with your game. It's really important. Also, your forward range. John and I were out there in the middle of the creek. If we were out there like that, I would jack that baby up to 200 feet, and I would just start scanning. But if you're in 10 foot of water, if you set it on 200 feet, it's just going to distort like crazy. So a lot of people say, it's like twice what your depth is, what you want to look, maybe once out of it. But I just kind of get a feel for last night going down the bank, we were looking at stripers kind of right on that ledge. Setting it 100 feet kind of distorts everything. So I set it about 50 or 60 feet. That's a good cast, and I get a real clear picture of what we were throwing in. But never stop messing with the forward range. Never stop messing with the depth. You need to keep it manual and also the game. If you rip the cable, I'll ask you. I'll tell a story. It kills me to think about it. But if you rip the cable, why don't you in fiber optics? Why don't you
Yeah.
So I can't really explain too much. These cables have like Brazilian little, almost looks like capillaries coming out of it, or going through the sheath. But if you break one of these things, you're done. Garmin's not going to warranty you because it wasn't their fault, it was your fault. But I met this guy a couple of years ago. His name's Joey. He's called Transducer Doctor on Facebook. That dude can fix anything. He's fixed, I mean, everybody in this country uses him. He's really quick. He'll play some 70 music. He'll get out there and he's got videos. If you ever have a cable break, just look this guy up on Facebook, send it to him within 4 days, and it'll be fixed. So, don't fret if you break a cable, there is a fix. And again, the most important aspect of forward-facing sonar is watching fish behavior. It's not going to make you catch more fish, but it's going to give you efficiency of studying their behavior and give you the opportunity to be always within your realm instead of just wishing that they were there. And then there was a conversation today in the tackle shack, I think, Heath. There was some kids in there talking about Livescope. Now, mind you, they had Livescope on the boat, but they were saying all these negative things. And that's fine. I'm not here to sell you a Livescope. I care about y'all fishing, catching fish. And this is one of the most important advancements I've ever seen in fishing. And I'm kind of a geek too when it comes to electronics. But it's really important. But they were kind of saying the negative things about it's cheating, it makes people lazy. I mean, I'm going on 6 hours of sleep in 4 days, and it hardly makes me lazy. We're going out as soon as I'm done, which is why I'm talking a little fast. So I don't know but anyway, what I equate it to, just my little analogy there, if anyone tells you that forward-facing sonar is cheating, ask them if using a chainsaw while logging is cheating too, because I guarantee you they're going to pick up steel instead of running that hand saw. The important takeaway, we just talked about that.
Yeah.
That's it.
So let me switch over here.
We're going to show you a video.
Yeah.
And I'm going to try to explain it the best I can what you're looking at. This was a light that Anthony and I found that I can take it there right now and catch the main strikers if you're catching one. You just have to sit there and wait on it. But this is an incredible light.
You got the sound on so you can hear him snickering?
Yeah.
No.
This is the light right here. So there's a big striker. There's a big striker. What's crazy is there's not a lot of shag. Look at this big striker. So what's happening is I'm pretty much over top the light so I can get a good picture, and those fish know, so they just kind of sink to the bottom. But you can see him coming in. Now, my boat's right here. This is 0. So this light, what's that say, 12 feet? So I'm 12 feet out. So there's not a lot of shag. These are all strikers in there.
Where's that? Is that a stationary green light or is that your boat?
There's a stationary. It's underwater deep blue.
This year, a ton of people put green lights out compared to last year. A ton of people did.
Will you show them that?
Sure.
But that's all it is. You're watching these strikers just swim around. And so what we'll do is we'll back off there and we'll wait an hour. And Anthony takes a nap and we wake up and they'll eventually start working their way to the top. You'll see them come up and chase.
And that first cast is so important. If you mess up, you watch those stripers disappear. If you get the perfect first cast, it's like 100% chance of getting fish. But if you hit it before, you hit it out, or you hit the dock, or whatever, you watch those fish disappear.
Yeah, John and I think we're a little high strung. We're also very, very passionate about our sport. Me and him together, we were a little crazy.
Well, the first time I'm with him, he rolled in like a bass fisherman. He rolled in, the docks are rocking like that. So I'm going, God, get back 50 yards and electric in. And then
He's absolutely right. Once they hear a few plops, they're gone. So the stealth approach is the way to go. And it's not just the deep glows. It's also like we found some green and white lights that show into the water. And again, I can use that Livescope and I can go.
yeah.
Go to the next slide.
You wanted one of these video links?
What was the first video I put with more shad in the picture?
On the group app.
Oh, on the group me. Sorry.
Yeah, because that one showed it a ton.
Oh, sorry.
You're like, what is going on there? Dropped his scope.
We caught a fish last night that spit out no less than 12, sometimes shad. I can't believe that fish wasn't sick. I've never seen so many shad come out of a fish.
Big bluebacks too.
I don't know what kind of shad they were, but it was incredible what they were doing underneath that light.
Those were about how deep the stripers.
That light was 16 feet deep, and when we got over them, they sunk down to 16, but when you go...
This one.
And what would you guys do? Throw a jig out there and let it go down?
Throw a swim bait.
Top water?
Throw a swim bait, just a little VTEC swim bait, or hit stem. But the important thing, like John said, when you're fishing these lights, you don't throw them on top of the light. You get back and you cast as far as you can past the light.
We call it dark light dark. You want to drop it in the dark, bring it right through the best part of the light, and then right as it comes out of that light, they smack it.
So if you look here, I mean, I was just being right. Look at that big fish. So he's like, that's his kingdom right there. He's just kind of frowning shad. Look at this one down here.
16 feet. There's one down
Right. They're a little bit spooked because we're over top of them, but look at this one right there. They're I mean, that's what you call fat and happy.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that is fat and happy right there.
There's a big one there.
You can almost see the forming in the tail. Being at nighttime, it's a little harder to get the detail than it is daytime. If it was daytime, I could almost show you the gills.
And it doesn't have to be a green light. It's just a regular light somebody has on their dock. Nobody else is hitting it on the lake. It's some of my best lights.
In this configuration, the brighter pops, those are better returns, which equate to bigger fish. The not so bright ones, they, I can't really explain, they could be on the outskirts of the beam, which would give you a bigger return, or it's a smaller fish. But look over here. They finally said, to hell with it, we're going to go underneath the dock and wait till you leave. That was after we caught, I don't know, 3 or 4 fish. And you see them disappear, and they're probably gone. If you look at, of course, you know, I would never fish at these lights with 2D sonar because you have to get rid of them. But if you're not using sonar, you catch 3 or 4, and you see them disappear from the light, you're like, we're done. With Livescope, I can go in and I'm like, there's 5 more. We'll sit back here, eat a peanut butter sandwich, wait about 30 minutes. We'll start to see them come up again, and you fire over there, and now you got them out. There's a lot more that I could cover. I don't want to take up.
Yeah, it's 8:30. 8:30.
But I will say this: I'm at the lake all the time. I'll be more than happy to go out with anybody and show them anything they want. I hope John gets this set up. I care about everybody catching fish, and I think this is a great tool to use for stripers and every other fish experience. The important thing is you just got to be patient, and you got to get it out of your. You got to put it on and use it. Right? You have to use this, you have to play with it. And I think once you get it installed, and you decide to go that route, it will open up your eyes to a whole new world.
All right.
Any questions?
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You talk fast all the time, not just looking at the fishing.